This talk is called A Guided Tour of the Brain. This talk was designed by Rebecca, Kira and Priya, the three NeuroGirls from the University of Sheffield, and this is just a sample of the kind of talks we give to local schools in Sheffield. For this particular talk, I'm going to focus on the frontal lobes, and these are known as the driving seat of the brain. So they are located right at the front, just behind your forehead, and they make up about 20% of the overall brain surface area, showing just how important they are. So some of the things that the frontal lobe is involved with include thinking about future consequences, making plans, reasoning, personality, and morality. Just as a quick example, let's take thinking about future consequences. So your frontal lobe will help you to think about these future consequences. So for instance, if it's the night of the final of the Big Brother show and you really want to know who wins, but you have an exam the next day and you know that this final will go on really late and will stop you being able to revise, you're faced here with a dilemma and your brain will help you think about the consequences of each option, and it'll allow you to realise that if you do watch the final, then perhaps you won't do as well in the exam as you'll be tired and you won't have as much time to revise. Now, this is just one example of the kind of decisions that your frontal lobe helps you make every day. For this talk, I mainly want to focus on personality and morality. So let's take personality first. Some of the pictures on the slide illustrate some different traits that might help make up your personality. For instance, are you a person who likes a video game? Someone who likes to watch TV? Perhaps someone who likes to paint? Or even someone who likes science? Well, these are all part of the unique traits that help make up who you are, and this is what we classify as personality. So how is it that the frontal lobe is involved with personality? One of the first case studies that allowed scientists to realise that the frontal lobe was a main part of the brain involved with personality was from a case study of a man named Phineas Gage. Now, Phineas Gage worked on the railroad in the early 1800s, and after a freak accident, a piece of this railroad pierced through his eye and damaged this front part of his brain. Now, Phineas was left okay, he was still talking when he went to the hospital. However, although this piece of railroad was removed, it left irreversible and everlasting changes to his personality because of the damage to the frontal lobe. So if we just take a quick look at the video again, you can see the rod has gone right through this front of his brain, so we know that this is the area that's damaged. Now let's have a look at some of the changes that occurred as a result of this damage. So before the accident, Phineas Gage was known to be very mild-mannered, very easy to get along with and quite a funny man, and he worked very hard at his job. After the accident, there were huge changes to his personality. He became very bad-tempered, he often swore a lot, behaved very socially inappropriately, and took unnecessary risks. Now this actually led to him losing his job. But it's not all bad news because scientists were able to learn a lot. We were able to learn that the frontal lobe might be a major site involved in personality. We have some more examples that just highlight to you how important the frontal lobes are with personality. And this comes from a procedure called a frontal lobotomy. Now this procedure was pioneered in humans by a man named Walter Freeman in America in the 1940s. And he used this procedure to treat people with known problem personalities. For instance, individuals with depression, psychosis, children with ADHD, and those with social problems. So what he did was he'd take an ice pick, he'd go through the eye, like you can see in the picture there, just above it, and then he'd move this ice pick back and forth, wiggling it around in the front part of your brain. So obviously this is going to cause some damage to the frontal lobe. So after this procedure, the patients were recovered, and again we saw huge personality changes. So the patients became very passive, very uncreative, docile and very easily distracted, almost the polar opposite of the personality traits they showed before. So now we know that the frontal lobes are a massive site for personality. Let's take a look at some of the other things they're involved with. And obviously, this procedure is not carried out anymore as it's very inhumane. So morality in the frontal lobe. Can you see the moral dilemma that the cameraman was faced with here? Well, he has two choices. One, he can shoo the squirrel away and he can save his friend's cake and ensure that the wedding goes off without a hitch, or he can take a funny photo, upload it to Facebook and get lots of likes. As you can see, This cameraman chose the latter option and went with the photo. So now I want to present you with a range of moral dilemmas. And as you think about these moral dilemmas, just remember that it's this frontal lobe that's helping you come to your decisions. As we go through the moral dilemmas, you'll also get to see the range of responses which are given by some 16-year-old school leavers, and you can see if your responses match theirs. Okay, so let's go through some moral dilemmas. So the first moral dilemma: would you ever cheat on a test if it meant you got a scholarship for university? So you would never be caught if you cheat, and it means that you won't have to pay any tuition fees, but you'll know that you did it. How would you respond? Yes or no? Let's take a look at how our school leavers responded. So the majority of the school leavers said that no, they wouldn't cheat to get a scholarship for university. However, a third of them said they would. How did you fare? Now for our second moral dilemma. Would you ever take a tenner that someone dropped? So this person is a stranger on the street, and you're walking behind them, you see them drop the £10 note, and you go to pick up the £10 note, but in order to return it to them, you would have to chase them down the street, perhaps shout, get their attention. So, would you bother? Would you take that £10 note? Yes or no? Let's see again how our school leavers answered. So this time, we actually have a reversal in our response. It seems that the majority of people said that yes, they would take the £10 note. Perhaps this scenario isn't quite as morally wrong as the other one, and that's why we have this reversal. How did your responses match up? Now for our final moral dilemma. Would you lend an untrustworthy friend money for the weekend? Now this friend often borrows money and doesn't return it, and they also borrow things and return them broken, such as DVDs. So you're left with a choice. They say that they really need money for the weekend. Would you lend it to them? Yes or no? Here are our school leavers' responses. So this time, every single person was in agreement that no, they wouldn't lend the untrustworthy friend money. Did you lend the untrustworthy friend money? So that concludes this portion of the talk which focused on the frontal lobe. Thanks for listening, and keep your eyes out for more of our talks which focus on other areas of the brain.